Welcome to My Therapist is Out. Each episode, we talk with a therapist from Open Space Therapy Collective or LGBT community members about mental health and building community. I'm your host, Renae Johnson, licensed therapist and founder of Open Space Therapy Collective, where we are your hub for queer and trans mental health care. This week, we are talking with Kristen Crowe, she, they. Kristen is a licensed therapist, dance movement therapist, and clinical supervisor with Open Space Therapy Collective. Kristen specializes in working somatically with adults and partners to help heal the mind-body connection so you can feel more grounded and vibrant every day.
As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening.
Hey y'all, welcome back. We are talking with our OSTC therapist, Kristen Crowe, again today about relationships. And this is a question that we get a lot from clients in the room, and it's a really valid question, is that can I have, or is it even possible for me to have healthy romantic relationships or healthy intimate relationships when I've never seen that modeled before? When my primary caregivers or my parents or my grandparents, my aunts, you name it, family, other people, my adults, quote unquote, grown adults in my life, don't have healthy relationships. How do I go about building healthy relationships when the baseline I'm starting from is toxic? It's full of arguments. It's full of justifying the old ball and chain. It's full of justifying running around on somebody and forgiving them. It's justifying how not to communicate. And this is tough. It's really individual for each person. And Chris and I really get into this because it is an important thing. As we've highlighted before, community is really important, and our personal and intimate relationships are something that really define how we are as people in the world, both in community and in relationship with others, but our own mental health, how we treat ourselves, how we develop into more self-actualized beings, versions of us. So it's really layered. So join us. If you like it, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media, Open Space Therapy Collective, and message us. Let us know what you think. Let us know your experience. We really want to hear about it. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome back to My Therapist is Out, an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. We have our clinical director and therapist, Kristen Crowe, with us today. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks.
Today's going to be a little lighter. I feel like the last one we did was kind of heavy. And now, as I'm saying that and thinking about the topic, I might be eating my words.
I think you will probably eat your words, but that's fine. It's fine. We're here for that.
It's fine. Oops. So today we're going to dive a little deeper into a question that we get a lot. And I have had in my life, is it possible to have and create healthy relationships if you've only ever seen toxic ones growing up in your family, in your friend group? If you don't know what the lived experience of a healthy relationship looks like, is it possible to make one?
Such a lighter topic.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Super light, not heavy at all.
Nope.
So what was it about this topic that you wanted to dive into?
Pretty much what you just said. It shows up all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's all the unpacking that we have to do, and also all of the normalizing that we have to do, right? Like, and the work that goes around this. I feel like so many of us grew up with that, and I think it should be talked about.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Maybe we should start by loosely framing what a healthy relationship
I was like, oh, those air quotes.
Looks or doesn't look like, because it's going to be different for every person, every partnership, every triad, whatever it is. And so we're not going to be able to be like, you need to do this, this, and that, and it needs to sound or act like XYZ. But there are some key things or some key feeling states that are going to be a part of a healthy relationship.
So things that are quote unquote green flags. Is that what we're trying to name? Okay, sure. Like loose ones. How about you feel safe
Yes.
in the relationship? And like a feeling of safety, it can be whatever that feels like for you, but also like physically safe, emotionally safe, financially safe, sexually safe. I'm sure I'm forgetting one, but those are the ones that are off the top of my head.
Yeah. I'll also add to that your safety and your partner's safety are equal.
Yes.
And that there's not like a power dynamic in here, because we'll get every once in a while where one partner feels safe because they have a lot of control in the relationship.
That's not the same.
No. And the other partner is a little more on edge.
Yeah.
So like real safety where both people's safety is, or everybody's safety is equally important.
I feel like you can have conversations about what you want and need without the other person flipping out. What else is good? I almost feel like those are very bare bones.
Yeah.
Like
Playing together, being silly together, having fun.
Yeah.
Like healthy relationships include a lot of that.
Yes.
Having shared time together and also
alone time,
supporting your interests and your other partner's interests, and not feeling threatened by that.
Yeah. It's like I lump so many of those things under like wants and needs. And you're right, those should be fleshed out. But like, what are the things that you really do need? Like, do you need more space? Do you need more shared time? Do you need different communication? Like, how can you talk about these things and still feel regulated and safe enough to do so? And I feel like your partner should want you, and you should want your partner to be like happy and fulfilled and like striving to meet that need even as you grow together and differently, and like be able to choose those things. Right. And if you're not, then that's okay too. But like communicate about the thing too.
Yeah. What about red flags? What are some big, like, this is not healthy?
The lack of safety. If there's any type of abuse happening.
Yes.
Right. Red flag. But that comes in a lot of different forms. Like some people don't realize while it's happening that like the emotional manipulation and all of that stuff, even though you're not being physically harmed, is still abusive or manipulating or intimidating. Those are red flags.
I think it's important to name in here, especially for our topic today and some of the questions we have coming, that abuse and manipulation aren't always intentional. Like,
Also true.
the person enacting the harmful thing doesn't always mean to know that they're doing it, is intentionally doing it. Like, they may not be aware of that, and that doesn't mean it's okay, and it doesn't mean that it's healthy to allow that to continue to happen or keep yourself exposed to that.
Because I think like if we're going off the like, is it possible to have a healthy relationship? Well, I've only seen toxic ones. Yes. And you still might be bringing toxic behaviors into your relationship despite your best intentions. And so it is the goal of our work, at least, to be working through those things and holding each other accountable and being like, and taking responsibility and wanting to change those things. And again, you don't have to take that if that is, even if they want to change. But like just bigger picture, zooming out a little further, or zooming in, I'm not even sure which one that is. Adding layers to it.
Yeah. I think too, like generationally, relationships are very different.
Yes.
Very different. And like what's going to be a healthy relationship for like a boomer couple and what's going to be a healthy relationship for like a Gen Z couple is also going to look really different.
Yes.
Gender identity and gender roles. Some people love the traditional ones. Some people hate them. And so there's going to be a lot in here that is very individualistic.
Yes.
And not enacting stuff, like you're saying, and we'll get into, is the core of this work. So it's not you have to be perfect all the time and your partner has to be perfect all the time for the relationship to be healthy.
Right.
When before we dive into the questions, when we think about repair in a relationship or having a fight and coming back together, I think that's really where a lot of the core proof, or where you can find the receipts of health of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you can give a couple examples of what that might look like in a healthy way.
I mean, I can talk about what I talk about with my people in relationship when they come back. Like when there is a rupture of some kind, I am personally not a proponent of like, okay, the rupture happened and you're still in a heightened state and you need to talk about it right now. The like don't go to bed angry kind of thing is not always like the option, right? It's being able to come back together when you are both in a grounded state. So like I have folks like call a timeout and then they go and they do something that is regulating for themselves, whether that is like taking a bath or reading a book or doing a yoga class or something, but there's other things that go into that, but like something that is regulating for them, and then come back together and be like, okay, are we ready to talk about the thing? And if somebody's like, I still can't stand the sight of your face, and we're like, okay, cool, so we're gonna go do some more of that and come back. But if they're ready, then I suggest like coming back and doing like a hug to co-regulate their systems, mm-hmm. and then to like sit down and talk about, okay, this is what happened for me, and I can either trace it back to this, or that's a pattern that I have, or I have no idea where that came from. Can we explore it? And just having like a grounded, calm conversation about how the thing happened. And if you start to get heated again because this is problematic, call another timeout and try again later, mm-hmm. right? Like it's all about like talking about these things in a space that is safe, because you want to teach your nervous system that it's okay to have conflict as long as you can come back and repair it. I don't even know if that answered your question.
It does. And I think I love that you're bringing this up, because it's often where one partner needs a timeout and the other partner wants to keep going. And that happens even in friendships.
Yes.
And the partner that wants to keep going is really hurt that somebody needs a break.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you're naming this, because it's really important to say, like, for both partners, this is not going to be good if you both are in heightened states. If mm-hmm. somebody's shut down and somebody's really elevated. If somebody's like, I need it, and somebody's like, I can't do it. It's not going to work.
Right.
And so the partner who wants to keep kind of that going also needs to understand that they're asking for something toxic. Mm-hmm. Even though their internal system is like, I'm feeling really insecure and scared and I want this to go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we set up these things in my relationship sessions, it's like an agreed upon framework, right? Mm-hmm. So like either partner can call the timeout. If you and I are having a conflict, like, and I see you're getting heightened, I can call the timeout even if I feel fine, mm-hmm. right? And it's like, okay, timeout, we're going to go do the thing. And that is the agreed upon, like, it doesn't matter what is going on for me, even if I'm really dysregulated, like, oh, maybe my partner needs the break and I can go cool down. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of folks can kind of like come down and be like, oh, mm-hmm. I'm away from the stimuli, I'm away from the painful thing, and I can kind of come back down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, parts of our brain actually shut off when we're in these heightened states. So mm-hmm. even though you think you need this thing and you think you need it to keep going, you're not fully online.
No.
And same with a partner that's shutting down or stepping away. Their brain is also not online.
Nope.
And they need to provide the safety that this is not going to be avoided. We are going to come back.
Yes. And that's the really important part of it, right? Like there's a set amount of time for how long they're going to try to regulate, and it's an option to be extended, but you don't shorten it. Mm-mm. And then when you come back, it's okay, this is when we're going to talk about it. Or even like come back together and be like, we really have to go to this dinner that we said we were going to go to. We're going to talk about this tomorrow morning at X, right? And it's like, okay, so anxious brains can kind of shut off and be like, okay, we're going to talk about this then. We can let this go. I feel regulated enough to come back with my partner, do whatever we're going to do for the evening and like talk about it when we've had some sleep too. It's not a come home at midnight and start the thing.
No. Oh my God. I think we need like a universal rule. I have very few universal rules. One of them, if it's past like 10 o'clock, no heated conversations, period.
Yeah. I'm not even sure we want deep conversations because they just can.
No.
Yeah.
Talk about something silly.
Yeah.
They never go well. Never. Between like 10 and 7, nothing goes well.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let's dive in. Okay, first question. There is so much out there about how to be in a healthy relationship or how to be good at being single. And all of these things you should know or shouldn't be paying attention to. Honestly, it seems like everything is a red flag these days. Where do I start when I want to focus on a healthy relationship?
Get off of TikTok. Do not take your relationship advice from a reel. There are a lot of useful things on there. There are a lot of things that will like land for you, and there are a lot of things that won't. And it does feel really overwhelming but again, like we started, everything is going to be really individualistic, right? You are a whole person with a whole lot of life experience, and what feels good for you might not feel good for someone else. What feels good for that person might be really triggering for you because you had something else happen, right? So I think it comes down to what sort of things feel good for you, what sort of things are you looking for, and then how do we cultivate like being able to seek those out and tolerate them sometimes, because they might feel weird because you only had the toxic thing. The healthy thing might be scary to start with, is probably scary to start with, right? Like just because all of these things are met doesn't mean everything is healed. Like it's still going to bring stuff up. So it comes with a lot of like regulation and just really diving into what feels important. What are your values and like things around this?
Yeah. When you're practicing healthy relationship things, even at the beginning and you're just like kind of looking around, saying no to stuff that you would usually say yes to or your family would say yes to and vice versa can be really scary.
Yes.
Like if somebody looks good on paper but is like drinks too much or is very quick to anger or judgmental or whatever the thing is, that maybe your family member has those traits, it's gonna be really hard to say no because it's gonna feel like an intellectual exercise instead of an emotional process.
Brain likes familiar things.
Loves familiar things.
Yeah.
Even bad familiar things.
Yeah. So if you are clear about the things like that is not, what I want, then like how do you help yourself stay grounded in that decision and like hold your boundary for that? I had another thought, but it's gone.
If somebody's starting out and trying to figure out what are red flags and what are green flags, what are some ways that they could kind of start identifying things without diving into too many TikTok reels?
I ask people to take a pause. Like if we're talking about it, okay, like what are you feeling right now? Like does this thing give you like a weird turn of your stomach, or does it give you like warm fuzzies in your chest? Like how are you like reacting to this? Does it remind you of somebody? Do you want to be reminded of that somebody in this relationship? And just kind of like teasing those things apart. Again, dance movement therapist here. Like I want to help you use your body cues, because your body will give you an answer and brain likes to convolute things because brain has created patterns for you. Body might say, I don't like that pattern.
Yeah, and both are important.
Yes.
And they're both information, and emotions are information, but your core self, your full self gets to make the decision, has the autonomy to make the decision.
So take a step back, think about it, feel about it, and then decide. Is that a thing that I want more of, or is that a thing I want less of?
Yeah. I mean, in practice, like as you're saying this, a way to practice that is if you have friends that you love, right? Or family members that you love, and what about them makes your brain, your emotions, and your body go, oh, I love this about them. I love that they are supportive. I love that I can go into deep talks, whatever. But I don't love that they're a homebody and they refuse to do the things that I'm interested in. Okay, great. That's lived information that your whole system has.
Yeah. Yep. What are the qualities about the people that make me feel good that I like? Yep.
Okay, solved.
Solved. Check. No more TikTok. Okay.
Okay. Number 2, am I damaged? I feel like damaged goods that no one will ever want to be with. I feel that. Especially when we have really traumatic upbringings and we are trying to break cycles. We are becoming aware of the cycles. We know that stuff is different. We can see ourselves still enacting and still feeling through those. It is so hard not to internalize all of the heavy shame, blame stuff that comes with that. And be like, and I'm worth being in a relationship with, or I'm worth engaging with. It's a really hard place to be.
Yeah. There is a lot of like acceptance that this is stuff that happened to me, and it's also not stuff that I have to perpetuate and keep going, right? Like if you have done this work enough to see that, then like you are already doing the work to kind of break those patterns and make those changes. And sometimes it's finding somebody who is willing to like be in that process with you.
Yeah, because all of life is a process.
Yeah.
You're not like damaged and then fucked for life. That's
No.
not how that works. If you sit around and are a lump and don't do anything, well, then you are choosing to not work on yourself and be better and not be in process. But if you're engaged in working on it, you can find a partner or partners that are also in their own journey of that. Because whether you come from the most well-adapted family in the world, which I've yet to see, or
Please show me them.
you come from somewhere really traumatic, it's your healing journey and the way that things change and reoccur so much over a lifetime that if you're engaged with it, you're not broken, you're healing.
Yeah. It's definitely a process. And I think something that you and I were talking about before we like got on mic was like the more you get life experiences, the more you might start like adapting some of these traits or like things, and you're like, oh well, that's new, or that's showing up in a different way than I'm used to. And so again, like the awareness of how that's showing up and what that feels like for you is an important thing to be tracking. And again, you're not damaged. It's just we're gonna shift through this and change tack.
It makes me I've got a couple clients that I work with that are newer parents, and it's funny because I worked with them before they had kids, and they were like, they felt really empowered and doing really well and stable and great. I'm in a place where I can have kids. And then they have the kids and they're like, I hear my mom coming out my mouth all the time and this is not good. And so it's there's not a fix it and then it's done. Like where also these parts of our past relationships are, where like we're enacting what our parents were doing with each other or what they did with us or extended family, whatever, when they come out can also happen much later.
Yep.
And be very fun surprises.
Yeah. Or not so fun surprises.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. Do I need to do a deep dive into my own toxic or traumatic past for me to be able to see past what was wrong in early relationships? I think what's being asked is kind of what we're talking about, is like, how much self-work do you need to do to see where your previous relationships went wrong and where your responsibility is in that?
I don't think you necessarily need to do a deep dive into all of your dark trauma spaces, right? Like, it can be, how did that feel? What did you like about that relationship and what didn't you like? And what part can you take accountability for that you are ready and willing to change at this point? Okay, how do we shift those things? How do you want to show up and how do we get there? And I think that inherently that will start to like tie back into that, but I don't think it needs to start back at the root of it. Like, you can come at all of these things which way you want, and it doesn't have to be dig all the way down to the core of the issue.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying about like the brain finding patterns. Is your brain is really good at finding patterns, and your body is and emotions really good as mirroring how you were feeling in the experience of those patterns. And so sometimes being like, okay, this most recent ex, this is what felt bad. Where else did I have a similar experience in my history? And just going from those experiences instead of being like, okay, well, let's start back on like day one of being born and the traumatic experience of coming out of the womb. Like, we don't need to do that.
No, that's too far.
Yeah. Okay. One more. And I really like this one. How can I trust my own intuitions and desires for what I want and need in a relationship if my models are all problematic?
That is such a good and big question, because those things can make you question everything. And I think it goes... And there is also the piece of like, well, I don't trust how I feel because I'm stuck in the pattern, right? And so I think it can tie a lot back to what you were saying about like the people that do make you feel safe, like your friends or like a family member or something. Like, what are those things that we can kind of start with? And then like, how do we know when you find that in somebody else? Like, what is that thing that we can attach to that feeling? And even if it's not a current person, like, I hope that there is somebody somewhere, a teacher, something, right, that you can attach. I did feel safe there. Okay, what did that feel like and why?
This is also like a really great plug for therapy, is your therapist and like your good friends, when you're like, hey, I think I'm in a pattern, here's what's happening, here's how I'm feeling, what's your perspective on this? Or like, will help you tease that stuff out. And your friends and even your therapists are not the authority. They're there to help you explore.
Yes.
Right? And so by getting a bunch of different viewpoints will help you find your own internal wisdom versus repeating experience. I have somebody I worked with for a long time that I adore and is a badass, and really was in this place early on and for a while when we were working together. And something that really worked for them was I would just start saying like, oh, so you feel like this. And then they would kind of bump up against that and be like, no, I don't feel like that at all. And so it was a way to kind of, and not that I was prescribing feelings, but just, being like, okay, so here's an example of this is what you're saying. Okay. But it allowed them to bump up back against themselves and be like, no, not that. Okay, let's try over here. Nope, not that feeling either. So then they were able to kind of find that self more reliably.
Yes. I also feel for my anxious folks, naming that you don't want to go to everybody and their mother about their perspectives.
Yes.
Because I work with someone who we've had to kind of like pare down. Okay, like who are your actual trusted folks instead of like colleague that works 2 cubicles down about perspective for some, right? So, you know, your trusted cohort there.
Which also takes time.
Yes.
Right? And like figuring out who your friends are that have your best interest in mind, can call you out lovingly, who you can also do the same.
Yes.
Takes time.
It definitely does. And I think it is the process and the trial and error of the things, because some of us are in different places in this process.
One of the beautiful things about our community and being a queer person is, and something I see all the time in like our friend groups and colleagues and the people that we work with in the rooms and all of this stuff, is if you are queer, you are already self-examining. You are already looking at like something is different. I am different. I want to be different. I want to live differently. And so if you're already doing that, you already have that strength of like exploration and reflection and kind of zooming out and zooming in. And so if you can pull on that strength that you already have and apply it here, you're already doing really well.
You already have a really good toolbox.
Yeah, you don't have to start from scratch.
No.
Oh, that was a positive soapbox.
Hey! That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. To end, unless you think we're forgetting something.
I feel like that's a good, like...
Okay.
We want to end on the good thing because we did the heavy stuff already, so
Okay.
let's not like dive back into heavy stuff.
Good things. Great.
I like zipping people up, not some motto of mine.
So to continue on good things, having community to talk to, having friends to bounce stuff off of is super important. What is an example for you in the past couple of weeks of a connection with your community?
Well, we had our OSTC like hangout yesterday, and that felt really good to be with all of us in person. Just kind of people who are in the field and friends and colleagues, and that just felt good.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
And it's so many of our meetings are virtual. It's so nice to be in the same place together and like watch people's whole bodies laugh.
Yes.
Instead of just their shoulders.
Instead of just their shoulders. Yes. Accurate.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Write in, ask questions. We're really moving to a place where we're getting in some good questions and want to hear from you and include those. You can email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. Find us on all of the socials and streamers. We're out there, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. My Therapist Is Out is an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. Our therapists are Renae Johnson, Kristen Crowe, Debbie White, Jenny Nigro, Tara Friedman, Sierra Bruca, and Ernesto Martinez. Our podcast editing is done by Smash and Grab Studio and research and writing done by Matt Wade. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.